YouTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm going to do a review of Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. I read this on my Kindle, so I don't have a copy, and you guys, of course, know I don't know how to put pictures up on the screen, so I cannot show you the cover of the book, but so this is what I consider a classic horror, not classic as in like 19th century, but classic as in mid-20th century. Like, it was, I believe, published in the 60s, late 60s. So we have this young couple, Rosemary and Guy Woodhouse, and they are trying to get an apartment in this building known as the Branford, which is very famous and very beautiful. They have really beautiful apartments, and it has quite the reputation as well. Like, their friend Hutch warns them that there have been a lot of weird things happening at Branford, including a lot of suicides, and he's trying to tell them not to do this, but they really want this place. And now Guy is an actor, that's why his name is Guy. I think that's such a stupid name, in my opinion. I'm sorry if you have the name, if your name is Guy, I don't mean to insult you. I just not a big fan of that name. I probably shouldn't call it stupid if anyone of you has that name. But I just think it's a silly name. Calling someone Guy. Anyway, he is not doing too great. He's a struggling actor. And he basically is desperate to be successful, but he's also trying to be, stand up about it, not the word I was looking for, but he's trying to be, respectful about it and not step on anyone's toes. But anyway, they also want to have kids, at least 3 kids. And so they've been trying for a while. And in their apartment building in the Branford, they meet. Well, first they meet this young woman named Terry, or Rosemary becomes friends with her, and this is how she finds out about this elderly couple, the Castevets, who have really been really helpful to Terry. She was someone who got into drugs and was living on the street, so they kind of took her in and helped her get her life back on track, but she ends up killing herself. She ends up committing suicide. And Rosemary and Guy end up meeting the Castevets, talking about how Terry had nothing but good things to say about them. And they kind of start attaching themselves to Rosemary and Guy and becoming friends with them and being really involved in their lives and their business. Now, Rosemary's a little wary of that, but Guy is starting to really like them because they're stroking his ego with talking about how he's the superior actor, and Mr. Castevet has all these stories about his family from back in the day who were in the business of acting, or might have been producers or writers. And when Rosemary does share with the Castevets that she wants to get pregnant. So when she does, they get really involved in her pregnancy, even offering her alternative remedies and offering to take, giving her their doctor. So, a Dr. Sharpenstein, even though she already was recommended a doctor. And things start to get a little weird for Rosemary, and other people are starting to see how this baby is affecting Rosemary's body and making, and she's, of course, a new mother, so she automatically believes her doctor, but her friends are seeing things a little differently, and seeing that she might not be as okay. And she eventually starts to realize that something's not right with the baby, and the Castevets might be involved. So this was adapted into a movie. I've not seen it yet, but I do want to see it at some point. Maybe I'm hoping it will be on one of the streaming networks, either that, or I'll have to wait until it comes on AMC again, because I know it came on earlier back in October for the Halloween month. This was really good. I mean, I kind of had an idea of what was going to happen, because this is one of those that's so part of the pop culture geist that you hear about it constantly. You kind of get an idea of where the direction it's going to go. So it wasn't surprising. I'm sure back in the 60s when it first came out, it was very surprising. But it is interesting that it's by a male author, and he's very much like back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. I feel like male authors didn't always understand how to write women, and not just write them as princesses and housewives and like being obedient to their husbands 24/7 and all that. I think Ira Levin does a really good job at really looking at feminism the way from a woman's perspective. At least that's the impression I got from when I read this. It's very, and now it's not horror as in monsters, like traditional monsters like the boogeyman or, like a vampire or something. It's more horror as in these people might worship the devil, might be involved in the occult, in the dark side of Wiccan, and it's more very subtle with its horrors. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. And it kind of relies on the fears of expectant mothers and worrying, am I doing a good job with the baby inside of me, growing inside me? Is it going to be healthy when it comes out? Is it safe? Is anyone trying to harm it? All those fears. And being a mother for the first time and wanting to make sure you do everything right and that your kid turns out all right and turns out good. That struggle. It looks at that. You also see Rosemary is very, so gaslighted by Guy, her husband. He just is so condescending towards her and just dismisses her fears. Is like, oh, honey, it's okay. Oh, don't worry about it. Or it's just unconventional ways of doing things, but it's okay. But he's just as cool as she is. He doesn't know any better. All he knows is, whatever he wants to believe. And, oh my God, and he just pissed me off. He just infuriated me throughout the book. I just could not stand him. I wanted to smack him. And I wanted her to give him, an ultimatum or something to get rid of him, because I think she deserved better. It's also very, is also, the horror is not just the whole not knowing if your baby's going to be okay, and if you're going to be a good mother, but also, is there witchery involved? Are these people who are getting really involved in giving you alternative medicines, can you trust it? And is it good for you? Is it good for the baby? And the doctors telling her, oh, you can't trust is putting really a lot of emphasis on the fact that every pregnancy is one that is completely different. You can't talk to any of your friends, because they will never understand. They won't know. And that whole thing of, oh, they'll say this, if they try to talk to you, if you try to talk to them, that whole thing about when someone says, when you're trying to talk to someone and warn somebody about something, or you're a little suspicious and the person is saying, oh, they said you'd say this, that kind of thing, which to me, that's a red flag. To me, that's a little message. Okay, something's not right here. The fact that this person is saying, oh, well, they will say this. And it's very much you don't know. It's another one of those situations where, you don't know if Rosemary's really unstable and experiencing maybe depression, or is she struggling with the birth, or with having a baby, or is there something actually occult going on, something occult, are these people really devil worshippers? and she starts hallucinating and seeing things, and it's like she can't trust her own judgment. So I feel like Rosemary Woodhouse was one of the early versions of the unreliable narrator. That, you know, you don't know if, or at least that narrator that you don't know for sure. I mean, although she's not really the narrator, so maybe not exactly the unreliable narrator, but that main character that is very unstable and you can't trust. You don't know if they're crazy or not. Like, there's a little possibility that, oh, maybe they really are. I mean, I figured, like I said, I kind of had a feel, I kind of knew where the direction the story was going, but there was still that tiny possibility that, you know, maybe, I mean, is she, I mean, especially with the way the characters just kept, like, oh, honey, you're just, you know, you're just grieving, or you're going through depression, or, oh, this happens to everyone, or, like, just constantly condescending, talking down to her. But the fact that this couple of the cast of us were constantly nosing in her business, always these people that she barely knew, that was, to me, that was also a red flag, because that was just weird that they were constantly, I mean, that they were constantly, like, being nosy and offering to help, but they barely knew this couple. But you can also see it where you could argue that, oh, you know, sometimes older people, you know, elderly people can be like that. They can be they're very old-fashioned and traditional, and it's the way they, you know, think how things should be done. So they might just be pushing their way of thinking on her. And it might not necessarily be evil or witchery or anything like that. So you can make an argument. So it was kind of done in a way that was very, like I said, very subtle, and very much, you could make a case for, oh, they're just being, like, you know, a nosy elderly couple, and not necessarily evil. But as the story progressed and it got worse and worse, it was just, you knew something, it was gonna just explode. Everything was just gonna fall apart for Rosemary. I just kept hoping that maybe things would work out, but I knew they wouldn't. You know, and as soon as, like, and there's one point where you think, for a second, you think Rosemary's gonna escape her situation, but then it blows up in her face, because you can't trust anyone, and people, and it makes sense that people might not believe her and think that she's crazy when she starts realizing what's really going on. And she also doesn't know herself. I mean, she doesn't have any proof yet, but I imagine when you get to that place, you know, that realization, you know, even if you don't have proof, there's a pretty good chance that you're right, and you can't risk that. I do. The other thing is that really bugged me about Guy, that really pissed me off, is that there's one instance when it does happen, that he goes too far, in my opinion, and, like, she's asleep at the time. Although I don't know if it was really him doing that thing to her. I mean, actually, I don't think it was. But he might have been involved. I'm not sure. Like, I'm trying to think of going by the end, how things turn out in the end, and what she's told by the end of the story. But yeah, this was really, you know, terrifying, and just downright, you know, a different kind of horror, a more psychological horror, a kind of horror that, you know, has started a phenomenon of writing books about, you know, people getting mixed up with the devil, and those horrors happening to you. It was very easy reading, was not that hard to read. I was wondering about that, but I think because it was written probably in the late 60s, it probably helps. It was a lot closer to today's writing style. It was, like, I think, up to date to the way books are written today. Not like the early and 20th and 19th century and before that. It wasn't like that. So I think it would be very easy to read, very immersive, and such a scary, tense read, not knowing what's gonna happen for Rosemary. And there's a sequel that I will read at some point, but I'm trying to work my way through the classic horrors and the horrors that became part of our pop culture geist, the in the 20th century, right before the 21st century. So that is so that's Rosemary's Baby, and then I got Psycho. I can read that, and there was a sale on that one where you could get that one really cheap. I only got like $2.51 or something for that. Paid $2.51 for that, so I got that one. I'll read that one next. But I might read that one. I have to double check and see when I read Rosemary's Baby. If I read that in October. I think I read that. Did I read that in October? I have to. Did I finish? I'll have to check and see if I finished that in October, because I can read Psycho. If I finish that in October, I can read Psycho sooner rather than later. I might have finished it. I might have finished Rosemary's Baby. I want to try to do like a one horror every month kind of thing, and not read them all in like one month. And Rosemary Baby was not that long. I don't know how long Psycho is. I'll have to look at that, see how long that one is. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Rosemary's Baby. It does have one more thing. It does have some, because it was around the 60s, there are some aspects of it that are dated. Things that not everybody would feel comfortable with. I'm talking about, so like basically casual racism is in there. And I know not a lot of people not like that. Will not be, because unfortunately it's, sadly that's how people thought that was okay, and it's not okay. So yeah, there is that, and there, unfortunately, that is in there. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Rosemary's Baby. It's a great horror book. I enjoyed it. And I hope you guys liked my review, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified about my latest videos, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!